Good evening, everyone. This is the Board of Education for Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District, calling the meeting order at 1910 hours. This is our January 4th regular meeting. Just so everyone knows, these meetings are televised. We have them on Channel 28, Tri-Valley TV. They're on Wednesday evenings and Saturday in the morning. So your image might be captured by one of the cameras within the room. We're going to start off tonight like we always do with our Pledge of Allegiance, and leading us tonight is going to be Christensen Middle School. So I'd like to ask their principal, Mrs. Dana Taylor, if you'd come up. And, I'm sorry, Junction.
We're doing both of them.
Oh, so Mrs. Avila. Yeah, both.
Good evening. My name is Pat Avila, and I'm the proud principal of Christensen Middle School, and it's my great pleasure to introduce three of our leadership students tonight: Lucy Patrick, Alicia Bagatti, and Addie Hart.
Good evening, and I am Dana Taylor, the proud principal of Junction K-8 School, and tonight I have two of my leadership students, Caitlin Brongo and Kakoa Ogawa.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may.
You guys can go ahead this way.
Oh, tall. Nicely done. Nicely done. Well, nicely done. Nicely done. Good job. Thanks for coming. Nicely done. Good job. Ooh. As I mentioned, we're coming in from closed session, so any action that we take in closed session, we report out. And I'd ask Trustee Wenzel, if you could read out a couple actions that we took.
Yes, we have two. In closed session, the board voted 5-0 to approve staff recommendation to release a temporary certificated employee. And the second, in closed session, the board voted 5-0 to approve staff recommendation to release a probationary classified employee.
Thank you, sir. Just a little bit of the housekeeping here. The exits are in the back. We have one on the side and back probably through the way most of you came through the entry here. If you need to use the restroom or anything like that during the meeting, feel free to go right on out. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Education for Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District, and our primary focus here is on the education of children within the jurisdiction of this public agency. During our discussion on each agenda item, there'll be a time for you to have the opportunity to speak to that item. If the item is not on the agenda, it's not mandatory, but we would ask you to fill out a tan speaker card and hand it in to one of the folks that's up here, our IT folks that's filming the meeting for us. And if the item is on the agenda, then fill out a blue card and pass it up the same way. We'll call you up in no particular order under that section, and we'd ask you to come up. It's a 3-minute rule, and it'll come up on the laptop there. And if you get around 2:30 or so, and it doesn't sound like you're wrapping up, then we'll probably, I'm not looking to be rude, but I'll probably make the mention that your time's kind of wrapping up. If you want to watch these meetings, again, they're on Channel 28, Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m., Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Getting started, I'd ask our superintendent, Dr. Kelly Bowers, if there's any changes to the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President. We do not have any changes to the agenda tonight.
Thank you. So we can go right into our recognitions.
This is always a very special time on our agenda and in our meeting. I will invite Mrs. Philomena Rambo, our Director of Community Engagement, forward. She will be honoring and recognizing, and I think probably joining our some high school administrators as well, our nationally acclaimed National Merit Scholars.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Bowers. Thank you, Dr. Bowers. Good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, members of cabinet, and the community. I am honored this evening to lead our recognition of our National Merit Commended students and our National Merit Scholars. The National Merit Scholarship Program is an academic competition that began in 1955. High school students enter this competition when they take the Preliminary Scholastic Aptitude Test, or the PSAT, in their junior year. And when they take it as a junior, it is also the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test and gets the lovely name of the PSAT NMSQT. This is the same test that all of our sophomores are able to take thanks to a contribution from the Pedrosi Foundation. It's very important for sophomores to take the test because once the students take the PSAT, the counselors at the schools are alerted to their academic potential to succeed in advanced placement courses. So we're able to identify them and encourage them to challenge themselves with rigorous college level courses. It also puts them on the mailing list for all the colleges, so it's kind of exciting. When juniors take the test, in addition to giving counselors information for course selection and encouraging college mail, it's really important because it can qualify them as National Merit Scholars. So last fall, across the country, about 1.6 million juniors took the PSAT NMSQT and started their competition for National Merit Scholarships. There are, of the top 5% of the juniors across the country who took this test, there are 14 in our district, and they have been named National Merit Commended Students. 1% of the students who took the test nationwide had top scores that identified them as semifinalists. 4 of those students are in our district, and these students will be able to go on and compete to become an actual National Merit finalist or National Merit Scholar. So we're going to be introducing these young individuals to you this evening, and so I'd like to invite our high school principals to join me. And we will invite the students to come up, and they'll stand here, and you can have a chance to see who they are and shake their hands. So if the principals would join me.
Oh, yeah. If there anyone, when we start this, if there's parents or anyone that would like to take pictures, the pictures look better if you stand behind us and take them that way. So you're welcome to come up and take pictures.
And we'll share the pictures that we take as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will pass the mic to you. I'm going to start by filling in for Principal Carla Estrada Hidalgo from Vineyard High School. She's not able to be here this evening, but Angela Traugut is here. We'd like to invite Angela up, who is a National Merit Commended student. So if you'd like to stand here. And Mrs. Gladden, I will pass the mic to you.
Good evening. I'm Helen Gladden, and I'm the proud principal of Livermore High School, home of the humble and kind.
Yeah.
Should I face this way?
Well, we asked the parents to come this way, and then you started to face that way.
I'll just do this.
We'll get it right.
Okay. Okay, the following students from Livermore High School are in the top 5% nationally and have earned the distinction of being National Merit Commended students. We're very proud of them. Timothy Blanton, Eugene Haw, Jacob McMillan, don't know if Jacob's here, Ranjini Nair, Avni Vashani, is Avni here? Austin Weinschelbaum, Jessica Weiss, I don't see Jessica, Colin Weiss, and Devin Zika. And the next 2 students are our National Merit semifinalists from Livermore High School. Elliot Ha and Sai Priyanka Iragavarapu. And now Mr. Hart.
I'm Matthew Hart. I'm the principal of Granada High School. I'm proud to tell you that the following students from Granada High School are in the top 5% nationally and have earned the distinction of being National Merit Commended students. Rebecca Bauman. Cassidy Holloway. Sejal Sahu. Jesse Watson. And these next students are National Merit semifinalists from Granada High School, qualifying in the top 1% nationwide. Theodore Dean. And Andy Shue.
So congratulations to all of you. And now if you would please go around and shake hands, we'd love to congratulate you personally. Thank you.
Let's hear it again for outstanding students.
That-
Congratulations. Great job. Keep it up. Great work. Knock my stuff over. It's okay. Good job. Keep working at it. Nicely done. Okay. Nicely done. Good job. Congratulations. Nicely done. Congratulations. Good job. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations. Good to see you. Nicely done. Congratulations. Keep up the good work. Congratulations. Congratulations. Good job. Great job. Glad to see you guys can do this. Great job.
So what's wonderful about this achievement is that from the college admission standpoint, all of their names will go in a year early to all of the colleges. So they'll be on the radar of all of the colleges 1 year before most of the other students even have a chance to apply. So it is a very, very big honor.
Yeah.
And we're so proud that so many parents came. Thank you.
That's great. As people are clearing out, we'll do our next, whenever it's good for you.
And so for our next recognition, we will ask Mrs. Padavilla to join us again. She is the very proud principal of Christensen Middle School, a California Distinguished School as well, to recognize and honor some very hardworking and dedicated staff members who make up her custodial group. And my Christensen color, sorry, Junction.
That's right, we're ready to go. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers and Cabinet. I'm Pat Avila, and I am here with Vice Principal Brian Sharman as well. Tonight, we wish to recognize the amazing custodians from CMS. Last year, we had a change in our custodial staff. We had to say goodbye to 2 of our former custodians, one due to retirement and the other one to advancement in the district. That led to a change and a new approach to how people view our site, and it's been very welcomed. We're excited to honor new head custodian Gregorio Sampayan and the night crew of Pablo Ayala and Fernando Izan as the new members of the CMS custodial staff. We're so fortunate that our campus is an attractive site and it's welcoming and it has a great feeling when you enter the buildings. We have a lot of large trees that produce an incredible canopy of shade during the summer and, in the spring, summer, and fall during the warm weather. These trees create months of cleanup of leaves and branches that shed, and our team works daily to keep the campus clean and safe. Our evening crew has adapted to the changes by supporting the site with almost everything needed to keep the campus clean and safe. In the fall, our leadership group put on a dance, and it was held outside, and we were a little short of our chaperones that evening. And without even asking, they heard some of the little panic that was going on the walkie, and they volunteered and walked out and watched the perimeter and just stood there with their walkies. And they were not asked to do this, they did it on their own. So with schools and teams, they do not function without support. And these gentlemen don't just do their particular job, but they take on the responsibilities of others to make sure that we have a clean and safe campus. And so I'd like to have those 3 gentlemen please come up to the front. Gregorio Sampayan, Fernando Izan, and Pablo Ayala. Please come forward.
Thanks. We really appreciate it. Great job. Thank you. Thank you very much. Great job. Yes.
And next, we will ask Mrs. Dana Taylor to come forward again to recognize some of her hardworking Bulldog staff, the Junction Avenue K-8 school office folks.
Hello. I'm going to bring up the whole team.
And we have our vice principals,
Would you like me to introduce them?
Jeanette
Our vice
Garza
principals.
and Jeremy Vilkins.
Yeah, Jeanette Garza and Jeremy Vilkins. So here we go. Ring, ring.
Junction Avenue, how may I help you? Our standard greeting heard all day long is just the beginning of the experience as one enters or calls our Bulldog Nation. Our school secretaries, first to greet and last to send off, have created a welcoming environment for all by forging positive relationships. One often sees them celebrating milestones with students, parents, and staff alike, or supporting and helping those who need it most. They volunteer their time securing donations for our families, connect our families to vital resources, and provide a listening ear to all who need one. Yes, they handle phone calls, attendance, budgets, staff questions, calendars, boo-boos, and manage the Student Responsibility Center. But more importantly, they represent our Junction core values by their work ethic and their caring and compassionate commitment to our Junction community. We are proud to work alongside them, learn from them, and laugh and cry with them.
Oh, I knew she was going to cry. We would like to please invite our wonderful Junction office staff, Lori Bybee, our registrar. Executive to the principal, secretary to the principal, Ms. Brenda Gallardo. Attendance, Sharice Johnson. And all around, I call her Wiki because she knows everything about every student and family, Rosanna Cazada. And Teresa Raychek could not be here tonight. She's ill, so we want to say thank you to her as well. So. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Yes.
I love the purple. Thank you. Good. All righty. All right, so we're going to move into our section 6. These are our student board member reports, and we'll start with Livermore High tonight. Sarada.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and members of the cabinet. I'm Radha Sritharan, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my amazing Cowboy Nation family. We hope everyone got to enjoy the wonderful long break with family and friends, and lots of food that we're still recovering from. On sports news, boys and girls varsity basketball is playing Granada this Friday at home. Girls at 5 p.m. and boys at 7 p.m. Talon Chambers and Xavier Williams won the Lou Bronson Wrestling Tournament, and Jimena Pulido placed at prestigious Wrestling Napa Tournament. Boys soccer also won their Winter Soccer Classic game. On February 5th, there will be another signing day. McKenna Luke will be signing for softball at Idaho State. Zoe Richards will be signing for softball at UCSD, and Katie Ottman will be signing for Biola University for swimming. Congratulations to our wonderful Lady Cowboys. Six-man basketball is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. in the main gym versus Granada High School. Doors will open at 6:45 p.m. promptly. Students will be $1 per person, and adults are $5, and all proceeds go to Make-A-Wish Foundation. Our boys have been working very hard for their game tomorrow. Campus life. Cowboy Nation is halfway through the second trimester, and seniors were celebrating all week as they're officially halfway done. Our trauma response training is a training for teachers to bring awareness on what childhood trauma may look like, and in hopes of assuring our staff-to-student relationship grows and supporting students in building coping strategies regardless of the types of trauma they have experienced. Student Forum has met again since last time and has began discussing the school-wide behavior matrix. Students have chosen parts of the campus which should have positive behavior expectations. They have came up with the acronym Cowboy Heroes, which will be used as a guide for behavior expectations. The H stands for honor, E, education, R, respect, O, open-minded, E, engaged, and S, safe. These are our Cowboy Heroes. This initiative will be fully implemented next academic school year. Meanwhile, student forum will continue to meet. Leadership students will be attending the Tri-Valley Leadership Conference alongside other Tri-Valley leadership classes on January 28th at San Ramon Valley High School. Bollywood Night is gearing up for its 3rd annual event on March 14th, and teams are already auditioning. We have already 15 signups from Bay Area teams. Granada and Livermore will be participating at the Northern California Business DECA Conference this weekend with 19 students in attendance. And as always, stay humble and kind, and it'll always be a great day to be a cowboy. Thank you.
Thanks, Rada. And now with Granada High School, Riley.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, Superintendent Bowers, members of the board and cabinet. In case you forgot over the break, my name is Riley Mora. There are many exciting things happening at the Granada campus at the moment. Yesterday, winter ball tickets went on sale, AP exam registration opened, and tryouts for some spring sports have begun, for example, volleyball. But tonight I'm really excited to talk about my experiences with the Student Advisory Board on Legislation. January 6th through 8th, I had the pleasure and privilege of attending a conference in Sacramento hosted by the California Association of Student Councils. This wonderful opportunity was sponsored by the Livermore Joint Unified School District, and I owe a special thank you to Superintendent Bowers and Mrs. McConnell for making the trip possible for me. While in Sacramento, I collaborated with other student leaders to create a proposal which I presented to the California Senate and Assembly. My proposal was focused on developing sustainability efforts in schools, as I have serious concerns regarding the current climate crisis that we all face. I also attended a press conference where AB 1858 was announced. I urge you to contact your legislators and request that they support AB 1858. If passed, the bill would establish a youth advisory board of 24 students who would offer legislators advice on how pending bills would impact youth in their implementation. Of the 24 students on the advisory board, 12 of which would be from backgrounds of students maybe who had a disability, who have been in foster youth, or been inside a juvenile detention facility. The reason that this stipulation is placed is because most of our legislation regarding youth has to do with these underrepresented populations, yet many of these youth don't have a voice to speak about how this legislation would impact them in its implementation. After a wonderful break and hard work at the conference in Sacramento, I am very grateful to be back on campus. Also, while at the conference, I had the opportunity to discuss many aspects of school life with fellow student board representatives and leaders. I immediately recognized that many students emphasize the immense pressure and test-based policies in their school districts. I just wanted to take a moment to commend Livermore Joint Unified School District for creating a culture where students are valued on a holistic basis. I've felt it, and I know my peers have. This approach to education does not only leave students better prepared for life, but it also encourages the maintenance of mental health. I would like to assert that I hope this also continues, even as the pressures of the college application process continue to increase in the coming years. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions regarding AB 1858, I would be more than happy to elaborate.
Thank you very much. Nicely done, both of you. Moving into section 7, this is our employee associations. This is a time for the leadership within our employee groups to come, have an audience, and tell us what's going on within their organization. Coming up is Mrs. Kate Sorrell. She's Livermore Education Association. Then we'll have Mamie Kristovich with CSEA.
Good evening, President Bueno, members of the school board, Superintendent Bowers, members of the cabinet. Yes, Kate Sorrell, President of the Livermore Education Association, and I would be remiss if I did not point out that blue is the color of the Livermore Education Association. Whenever I see Mr. Greer and we're wearing blue, he thinks I'm supporting the Dodgers. Not happening. But I did think I should point it out tonight. So there's lots going on. I want to start by wishing you a Happy New Year. In terms of union activities, we did a survey of our members to get input about calendar and what our next year's calendar should be like. We've shared those results with Mr. Van Schack, and he has shared with us the results of the community response, and so we're going to be sitting down shortly and coming up with a outline of next year's calendar. Our bargaining team is getting ready for negotiations. They're meeting a week from Thursday to start thinking about what kinds of topics will be discussed. There are 36 articles in our contract, and we could, not that we're going to, but we could open up each and every one of them. Yeah. But don't worry, we're not doing that. In terms of some changes, for a long time, if you've seen us wearing our blue shirts, we have our slogan on the back, and it says, every student counts, every teacher counts. And that was our message, our frame, if you want to think of it that way. We're changing that to standing united for students. And we're going to use that frame when we message our members, when we message the parents, and when we message our community, because that's our intent, is to stand together, united, to support students. We sent 6 members of our bargaining unit, some counselors and some teachers, to a CTA conference in January. It was the LGBTQ plus conference, and they're going to come to our rep council meeting on Thursday and give a presentation about the highlights of the conference and specifically what we can do to make sure that all students and all staff are safe in our district. And then just so the school board can get this on their calendar, school board breakfast is coming up. It's February 22nd at the Hilton Doubletree. Starts at 8:30, and we don't know who the guest speaker is going to be. I'll let you know once I have that information, and you will be getting an invitation from me via email. So check your spam folder. Okay, so the other part that I'm concerned that I wanted to bring to our attention to our folks here and at home is there's some really false information that's being disseminated on Facebook about the Schools and Communities First initiative. And I have, taught civics for a long time. I am a great believer in the democratic process, and people should vote their conscience and do what they believe is best for themselves and their community. What bothers me is when people lie. So on your, before you, there's a handout from an organization called Evolve, and it has Prop 13 FAQs. So one of the biggest lies that's being promoted by people who are opposed to it is that this is an attempt to restructure residential property owners' assessments. That's just blatantly not true. Another lie that's being told is that it's going to impact all businesses, not just big, there's no limitation, and that, it's going to affect agricultural property. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I thought it was important to provide this information and so that people actually, instead of relying on false news that's being presented on Facebook and other parts of social media, that they would actually go and look for themselves. So all you need to do is go to Google and type in schoolsandcommunitiesfirst.com, and you will find that the organizers of that are in fact the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation. And one of the things that they're saying on Facebook is that this is an anti-capitalist initiative. It's like, okay, Zuckerberg? I don't think he would be supporting an anti-capitalist initiative from what I know about him. Another one is the San Francisco Foundation, and the final major supporter is, in fact, the California Teachers Association. So I ask you to look into that. And then I also gave you a nice little graphic that shows that in 1974, residential property owners had 55% of the tax burden being paid into the general fund, and businesses had 45%. If you go all the way over to the right, and my data ends in 2009, 2010, now residential property owners are shouldering almost 75% of the tax burden, and non-residential are shouldering 25%. That doesn't seem very fair to me. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sure.
Mrs. Sorrell,
Yes.
the Prop 13 is not what's on the ballot in March, however.
No, this
There's
is
a bond on the ballot in March. This
Right.
would be for the fall,
right.
Right.
If it qualifies, and we
if it qualifies.
and there over 1 million signatures have to be gathered, but we're halfway there. If it qualifies, it'll be on the November ballot.
But there is something called Prop 13 on the March ballot, which is a bond.
Yes.
So
And
let's not confuse.
Right, and that's, I don't understand quite how that was allowed to have that title, because it's not about Prop 13.
It's not even son of Prop 13.
No.
It's a whole different package. It's
Yes.
a bond which will support facilities improvement TK 16.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Then we have Mamie Kristovich with CSEA. And not able to attend is Teresa Jennings with SEIU and Cindy Martinez with Confidentials.
Good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and cabinet members. My name is Mamie Kristovich, president of CSEA. The holidays came and went, and now we are already in the middle of January. The second half of the school year is always busy for CSEA, with many activities coming up in the months ahead. In December, I was reelected to the role of president, so I am dedicating another year to my chapter's members. I became CSEA president in April of 2016, and no one could have convinced me then that I would still be here today with continued energy and drive in my quest to represent the interests of CSEA members. Employees are important in every organization, and classified employees are on the front lines and behind the scenes every day working hard to do their part in support of our students. Our paraeducators comprise almost half of our membership. They support our students with special needs in earnest. However, some are feeling the tide of change. I recently met with our paraeducators to hear their concerns, and I hope to work collaboratively with the district to ensure that important issues are heard and addressed. CSEA's Paraeducator Conference this year is scheduled for March 17 to 19 in Ontario, California. The conference debuted in 1998 in Sacramento with about 100 attendees. Since then, attendance has grown to over 1,000 each year. The workshops are very extensive, providing training on a wide range of topics, such as autism and evidence-based classroom practices, emotional and behavioral disturbance, social media and its impact on students, understanding emotions and the rage cycle, and even making math fun. Last year, my chapter provided funding for 4 paraeducators to attend the conference with release time from the district. This year, Chris Van Schack has agreed to provide release time again, and we appreciate his support. Negotiations for our successor contract are just around the corner. We surveyed our members in December and received important input that will help to guide our efforts. I'm currently working with my negotiating team to analyze the data and determine next steps. I look forward to productive negotiations with the district this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move into Section 8. This is communication from the public. Communication from the public is the time for the public to comment either in writing or verbally on any item that is not on our agenda. We, the board, may listen to the item and we can ask clarifying questions of staff, but we can neither discuss nor take action on topics that are not on the agenda, and this is all in accordance with the Brown Act. I believe we have one card. If there's anyone else that would like to come up, please do so. And so it's Ms. Jennifer Hiddinger, please. The green light should be on just so we can capture your audio.
Good evening. As I only have 3 minutes, I'll let go of the formalities. I'm actually here tonight on behalf of my daughter. She has the flu. Her name is Amelie Hittinger, so these are her thoughts, and she wanted to share some quick things. It's mostly to do with the schedule and the calendar that is coming out. There was the survey that was available in December. It said at the end of the survey that the input was coming from parents, guardians, teachers, and administrators, and she was concerned that that didn't include any students in this district providing direct information, and humbly suggests in the future that you may consider adding that school loop for your middle school and high school students, as the schedule significantly affects them. She and her peers were concerned about why we were trying to match other districts in the area, mostly because they are on a semester schedule and we are on a trimester schedule. And for them, that means the second trimester becomes split with a pre-Thanksgiving break, then Christmas, then after Christmas break, and divides that trimester into a very dysfunctional 3 parts. They found that very difficult to manage this year and would hope to avoid that for the future, just for time management. They said that teachers and students both found it very difficult to pick right back up after first trimester ended from a busy fall sports schedule, band schedule, et cetera, to be able to try and get anything functional done that week before Thanksgiving break. And finally, my daughter Amelie is the Music Council president at Granada. And on behalf of that, she wanted to throw out the consideration of the rodeo parade as a Livermore community event that affects music programs all through our district. That when the school schedule ends, significantly distant from when the rodeo traditionally is, it means that the high schools and middle schools do not participate. That's an important rising event for middle schoolers to participate as they look forward to adding marching to their schedule for high school. And they have very little ability to practice that, participate in that, and see others as students and leaders. It's also a visibility for our music program throughout the community, which is important for fundraising for our school music programs. Traditionally, that has been an event that has been a graded assignment for both middle schoolers and high schoolers, but if it's a week or 10 days or 2 weeks distant, it cannot be included in that, and that opportunity for being part of our community is lost. So students would just like to say, hey, it said at the end of the survey we would hear about the calendar in January. It's not on the agenda for tonight, and we haven't seen anything yet about it. They just wanted to know your thoughts before, have those thoughts available to you before it goes out. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We had asked Superintendent, maybe we could just do some clarification down the road on our next meeting. If you may provide us some clarification on maybe on student input and things like that.
Sure. Or Mr. Minchuk can also provide it in the Friday memo or even this evening. I know that many parents discussed it with their kids before they cast that's from the Parent Club Information Council standpoint. They did represent their children's voices with that, but I do think that our student board member may even have ideas too about including student input. I know at the high school level, it was more often expressed. Students have let us know quite a bit in different forms, sometimes through our student leadership and directly to our administrators, but there's certainly always some more we can do. But I don't know, Riley, if you had any ideas too.
On the topic of including students in the survey, I would say that's probably a good idea considering we're the ones learning. On the specific topic, of the school calendar. I do think it's something to be assessed because it did greatly affect me and my teachers, I think, to have the trimester split up in that way. Just in terms of like the way the course was laid out in the curriculum, but also because going on break when the trimester hasn't ended means that teachers can assign homework over break. And so then break doesn't end up actually being a break. So it was really nice before to have the trimester end beforehand. And I don't know where we're at with the development of the next year's calendar, but that's just my input on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Now we're moving to 8B, the correspondence, formal written correspondence. Formal written correspondence to the Board of Education shall be acknowledged if received by the board or in the superintendent's office by 4 p.m. the day before the meeting. Formal written correspondence received after the cutoff time will be acknowledged at the following meeting. Electronic communication received via the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District website by accessing formal written correspondence to the Board of Education link with all fields completed and verified, that shall be treated as formal written correspondence. Mr. Clerk, if we have any correspondence, if you could please summarize.
Yes, Mr. President, we have two items. First and seconded by the same companies, but for different reasons. Nigro PC, formal board correspondence received via letter to the Board of Education, confirming the audit of the financial statements of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District for the year ended June 30th, 2019, per required professional standards. Nigro encountered no difficulties in dealing with management and performing and completing the audit. There was no misstatements identified, and they were pleased to report that there were no disagreements during the course of the audit. The second one is from Nigro. Formal board correspondence received via letter to the Board of Education confirming the audit of the financial statements for the Measure J General Obligation Bond Building Fund of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District for the year ended June 30th, 2019, per required professional standards. The correspondence stated that the financial statement disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear, and noted that there were no transactions entered into the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District during the year for which there is a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus. There were no misstatements identified, and Nigro was pleased to report that there were no disagreements during the course of the audit. And that's the end of board correspondence.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we're going to move into our information discussion items, and I'd ask Superintendent Bowers if you'd introduce our first item, 9.1, please.
Certainly. We get to invite Dr. Kevin Greer here, who is taking the place of Mike Piani this evening, and he will do the honors of introducing formally and reintroducing our leadership team and admin team from Junction.
So I'd like to ask to have the principal, Dana Taylor, and both assistant principals, Jeanette Garza and Jeremy Wilkins, to come on forward and make their presentation about their dual immersion program.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. This is the Junction admin team, and these are my vice principals. I'm Dana Taylor, principal. These are my vice principals, Jeanette Garza and Jeremy Wilkins. And since we work so closely together and we have so much pride in our school, we wanted to share this report with you. You want to see the clicker? So the total enrollment of Junction right now is 990, which has grown tremendously since I was a vice principal there, and over the years. We have at times been at 1,000. Currently, we have 443 TK through 5th graders and 547 6th through 8th graders. We also have a preschool program. But dual immersion numbers at the school are 53% school-wide, which has grown from about 34% 3 years ago. So 65% of the dual immersion kids are in our K through 5 program, and 14% are in our middle school. And Jeanette Garza oversees our dual immersion program, and so she will tell you more about that.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to first start with the elementary side of our DI program, as we like to call it. So we are in the process of a self-assessment, and some of the things that have come up and things that we wanted to address. One was that the teachers felt that there was lost time in transitioning from, because we used to do 50% of the day in Spanish and 50% of the day in English. So we now are doing alternating days where the kids will have one full day in Spanish and one full day in English, and we're already getting feedback that this is having positive results. Of course, we're adhering to the California state standards in both English and Spanish. English language arts, math and science are taught in English. This is also a change because math used to be taught at the TK through 5th grade level in Spanish within DI. And what we've decided is because it's so language rich, we wanted to officially change the math to English, but the students are getting supplemental in Spanish. So actually they're getting both in Spanish and English for math. Spanish language arts, PE and social studies, of course, are taught in Spanish. For middle school, we haven't made any changes there. 67% of the total day is in English, 33% is in Spanish. English language arts, science, mathematics, physical education, and electives are taught in English. And then, of course, social studies, Spanish language arts are taught in Spanish. Oh, my favorite part, our enrichment and our offerings. So we have been able to bring in more bilingual speakers that are relevant, and the kids have really enjoyed it. Specifically, this last May, we were able to bring Mara Hand, near and dear to my heart, I'll have to say, who was a Livermore High School graduate from 2012 and earned her seal of biliteracy. So she had a presentation for the students where she talked about all of her opportunities for study abroad programs through college, and then she's also a serving member currently of the Peace Corps, and she's in Peru. So the kids were absolutely captivated by her and her presentation. Benchmark and Study Sync are in Spanish. We have our annual Spanish spelling bee, 8th grade final capstone presentation to the panel of judges. We were once again lucky enough to be able to see the Ballet Folklorico from the Oakland Ballet Company here at the Bankhead. Well, we have our own Folklorico dance team. And I know you all know about our Dia de los Muertos events because so often you celebrate with us. And of course, our Dia del Niño. We are very proud that we have a growing selection of Spanish library books, but not only in the library, also in the classroom of authentic Spanish material. That's really important. And of course, at the end of this month, we have our 2nd annual Spanish Book Fair. More points of pride are our students develop a profound appreciation of other cultures and are culturally competent. This program is a pathway to Granada's IB program, or it also prepares the students who choose to go to Livermore High to take the AP program. Of course, the end goal is not only to be bilingual, but also to be able to earn the state of California seal of biliteracy as they graduate from high school. And I'm very, very happy and proud to report that yearly improvement is still being seen on the Spanish placement test. Our 2018-19 results, 100% passed, both written and the assessment, and 76% of them passed the written section with a perfect score. Considering that they also have to write an essay, that's very impressive. And now, Mr. Vilkins.
Under the Framework for Success area in academics, we run the gamut of both helping out our students who are high achieving in the area of honors and accelerated classes, but we also help with the kids who need the extra support and extra help in English language development. In our core class for middle school, we have used a lot of guided language acquisition and design strategies. We call them GLAD strategies, and they're good for all classes, not just for the ELD, but for all students. We have an implementation of new universal screeners like Ames Web and Easy CBM in English and Spanish. Implementation of 95% reading intervention, which is used for our Title I students so that they can become more phonemic aware. Coaching and professional development for staff, always like to keep them up with the latest trends in Spanish reading intervention intervention, and although we have pull-out support for our resource students, but we also have push and support because we believe that they get the most help when they are within their own general ed class. We have plenty of after-school intervention and student support. We have the READY program. It stands for Rotarians Enriching and Directing Youth, where they come in on Mondays and they help kids in the area of math. Migrant Ed student English classes, Migrant Ed student math classes, math intervention known as ACELUS. We have the Believes program, LERPD, ESS, and PAL programs, homework clubs. Yeah, we have a lot going on. Framework for Success area in social and emotional. We use the Choose Love curriculum throughout the entire school. We have full-time counseling, thank you. We have the Kid Connection. Lisa, Hannah, and Danner and Miss Kitty are excellent with that. Weekly coordination of services team, we call it the COS team. We meet every Wednesday and we talk about all the kids that we have our eyes on and the teachers notice too, and we find them help. We have Mindful Mondays led by our counselor, Marina Bunce. Teachers are trained in youth mental health first aid. I'm giving a training tomorrow, by the way. Teacher professional development and trauma-informed practices in the classroom. We have Teens for Life presentations to our 7th graders every year. In the Framework for Success area of behavior, we are changing our way of thinking. We're now practicing something called PBIS. PBIS is positive behavior interventions and supports, and it's a way of showing the kids what we're expecting. We have expected behaviors. We teach the kids academics. We're now teaching them behavior. This is how we expect you to walk in the hallway. This is how we expect you to act in the classroom. This is how we expect you to act in the blacktop. The structure is working. The system is working. More kids are spending time in the classroom than in the office, and being the vice principal of middle school, I'm very appreciative of that. We use a Swiss, the Swiss tracking system that tracks our data, that helps us understand where any type of areas are that we would need to focus on. And we use plenty of restorative practices when kids come in and they need extra help.
In the area of enrichment and extracurriculars at Junction, we do have the PLTW project Lead the Way in our middle school electives as well as our elementary. We hope to bring more next year, including our medical detectives, so we're working on that for our students. It's exciting. We have Rotarians. We have the READY program after school, Girls That Code, but also boys are included in that as well. We have math counts that is heavily populated in the afternoons, but you know, 5 showed up this year, but we were a smaller group than the other schools because we are a smaller middle school. We have project-based academic Olympics. So instead of just having quiz type academic Olympics competitions, we actually do project-based activities all through the day all through the week in social science, math, and science. We have them, they actually become, it's more Common Core. And so we're excited to do that. And then we have on Friday, we have like a celebration, an Olympics medal ceremony with the families. And we also included chess in this competition. And every year we have a great turnout, and our special ed team wins every year for 2nd and 3rd. So they are so gifted, and they love to play chess. So we're proud of them. And we also have a program called Girls on the Run that was started. It's actually a counseling program they run as well. We're proud of our Spanish Spelling Bee and our Spelling Bee every year. And we have a running club. We have a chess club at both lunches. We have band, orchestra, and color guard. We are so proud to have a full-time band teacher on our site that does everything from 4th to 5th grade. We have orchestra, we have band, and we have choir. He's amazing, and it's been such a culture shift at our school, and we're just growing that program, and so we're very proud of that. We do So I, So Young, which is the Shakespeare for second graders. We have, of course, I just said the 4th and 5th grade. We have Ballet Folklorico, our GATE program, Family Science Nights. We host the annual Science Odyssey, and we have a growing Title I reading night. We just call it Reading Nights now, but we put them together with our book fair, and we have big themes, whether it's reading to dogs or Harry Potter, whatever, but there's 200 or 300 people there, where years ago we had 10. So we're really proud of our program in that sense, our Title I. Our focus has been, the district focus this year has been on math. And these are some of the things we have done on campus. Our staff has had regular professional development with our ATOSA, our teachers on special assignments here in the district. We love Sharon Abree. We work with her. She's on our site probably every day. So we have developed a relationship there, and the teachers are stronger for it. The TOSAs actually are in the classroom too, not just doing PD, but they're right next to them doing the lessons. We've shifted our math instruction in the dual immersion, as Jeanette said, from Spanish to English. We want to make sure they're really understanding that vocabulary, but then we're also supplementing it in Spanish. So the kids are seeing math on both sides now. And we have just a general math focus. We've had family counting nights, but we also have a staff member who developed it's a math passport throughout the city, where they did math problems, and then they would go around the city and get, whether it was they would do a math problem and it would lead them to Buffalo Wild Wings, and then they would get free wings. So it was pretty amazing, and our 5th grade teacher, Jeffrey Pennywell, helped with that.
And if I could add, that idea has now expanded into our district is going to be sponsoring a community-wide passport around the city, and we're working in conjunction with the new Science and Historical Society, which is called Quest now. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be coming up with things, and our LVF, our Livermore Valley Education Foundation, has put up some funding to help prepare that, and also for prizes. So what you did at your site benefited your children, but now it's going to be expanded citywide, which will help all of our kids improve math in a fun way that's realistic and involves the community. So thank you for leading the way, Junction.
We'll tell them. We've also had exciting updates and with the bond and facilities. Every classroom at our school has an audio-visual system that includes the projectors and speakers and microphones, and that may not sound like a lot to the community, but in terms of engaging the children, there's a microphone. They can hear students. It's definitely an engagement and management tool, but the kids also like to pass the microphone, and so people tend to stay on task because they can't wait to have the microphone to share. And so it's been the teachers in the first week were raving about what it has done in their classroom. So thank you. We also had a bandwidth infrastructure. Our bandwidth has expanded, so the technology infrastructure of our site. And we had the installation of our 2 playgrounds, which you can see one of them right there, which is very exciting. So thank you again, community. Our big points of pride this year is we do everything. The guide for everything right now is the framework for success, the umbrella. And we focus everything around that. But really, PBIS, the Positive Behavior Intervention Supports, has really defined our work this year because it's so rewarding and we see the benefits. In our first year, we were the pilot cohort 1. In our first year, we were able to get the California Bronze Award right there. You see, we're so proud. And now we're in the 2nd year and we want silver. So I have to wait for gold. So I'm going to go to silver, but we're on it. And we really are progressing through. Matter of fact, today we were in here all day learning about the next tier of PBIS. The school is transformed, and I invite all of you to come and see what PBIS has done with our students. Another point of pride is our coordination of services team. I think every time I'm in front of you, I mention them just because it's so important. We call it COST. And from August to now, so January, we have already, we meet once a week and we discuss cases, students that we may slip through the cracks, that we can give some support to. So far we have, this year, talked individually and assisted 120 special cases. So it is challenging work, emotional work, but it's probably the most gratifying thing we do because you're helping families and students every day. another point of pride is we're almost at 1,000 students. We're busting at the seams, and we love it. And our middle school's growing. We like to call ourselves a model DI program. We've had other schools come to visit us and look at our programs and contact us to see what we're doing. And we have people from local school or Tri-Valley area come from their district to ours to be part of our program. So we're happy to have them. And we have something which we love called the COMPI program, which is short for Compañero, buddy program. We are doing a lot of our Choose Love curriculum in teams. So whether it's a first grade class and an 8th grade class, or a 3rd grade class and a 7th grade class, we have a buddy Compañero program, a COMPI program, where they do a lot of the Choose Love stuff together, and it's been so rewarding. I think you saw earlier pictures of them doing brave breaths together for They Choose Love. So it's just amazing to see. And we have committed this year and next year to focusing on trauma-informed teaching. We already had one PD through Kaiser, and everything we want to build our curriculum. Well, actually, PBIS is part of it, but trauma-informed practices, our teachers want it, and they're begging for it, and we've already learned so much, so we're ready to go on that. And then on a positive note, we just installed our first buddy bench. And if you guys know what a buddy bench is, if the community doesn't know, it's where if students are not having someone to hang out with at lunch or at recess, then they want to play, and there's no one to join a group with, they sit on the buddy bench, and the rule is kids watch, they come up, if they want to, they have to say yes if they want to play, and they go off together and play a game, and then the next day they look for that same person. The goal is to have an empty buddy bench, right? So, but it's been fun to watch, and we our school psychologist thinks it's the best thing ever. He's so happy we brought it in. It's great. And looking forward next year, we started today, Tier 2 in our behavioral systems for interventions. And like I said, I want that silver medal. Junction's gonna get it. And we're gonna continue to find ways to implement high quality math, Spanish, and English instruction. We are looking at, like Jeanette said, our dual immersion our assessment. Our dual immersion teachers are looking at how our program works and if we need to make changes to make it better. And we'll be revisiting the dual immersion master plan. And again, trauma-informed teaching. It is making an impact on our teachers and on our students. So that will be our focus for this year and next year. And that's what's happening at Junction K-8.
Thank you very much. We're going to start with Mrs. Prusso.
Okay, thank you for coming tonight. I have some questions for you and some comments. So I have some questions about the dual immersion, so whoever is best equipped, thank you. Okay. One of my questions is, are the students able to stay at grade level, and are they required to stay at grade level in both Spanish and English? And if not, what systems are in place for that? How does that work?
Yes, they are able to. If not, we do have Spanish intervention as well as English intervention.
Okay.
So we do have those systems in place. If you're looking, if there's a student that's struggling, we do everything to keep the student in there. It's also a family decision.
Okay. And then my other question is, okay, so they'd be a grade level in both Spanish and English.
Yes. Yeah.
And then if a student chooses to or wants to move out of the Spanish class, how does that look like? And how many students do you have? What are the classroom sizes like? And how does that look as the grades move on?
Mm-hmm.
I'm partly asking too because my niece is in a dual immersion, so I'm like, she's in kindergarten, so we're just.
So we have a lot of people moving in and out, just out of the school and back into the school. We have students that come from other dual immersion programs that come, like San Jose, we're getting a lot of those. And so there is some natural attrition there. Then there are students who decide that for a variety of reasons, they choose not to continue. And if they're going into what we call the English only, the EO side, it really depends on the number of students that are already in the EO classroom. We have been able to, my time there, we've been able to meet most of those needs.
Okay.
If they're transferring into the EO program, if not, they go on to a wait list or they stay in the DI program until there's an opening, yes.
Okay. Yeah, and then,
Yeah, our classes are full on the English only side.
okay.
Yes.
So also is the, is that common? Like, how many students do leave?
No,
It's not very common. Okay.
It's very minimal.
Okay, that's good to know. I mean, I think it's a great program, and I just want to make sure keep it going.
Sorry, through kindergarten and first grade, I think as the personalities of the students develop, they kind of understand if they're keeping up with, because these students need to keep up with both curriculums.
Yeah.
So if they're finding it challenging and we're supporting in every way they can, sometimes the parents choose, well, maybe we'll just stick with the English only track, but rarely.
And my other question, I mean, and I see this in English also, but is there a stage where it kind of levels off? You know, like maybe they're a little bit behind, but they get to 3rd and 4th grade, and it kind of levels out.
You mean for
both Spanish?
Yes.
For the dual immersion.
Yeah. So studies show that the kids tend to be a little bit behind. More about 2nd grade, 3rd grade. They start leveling out. 5th grade, it's even closer.
Okay.
By 8th grade, they're level, and actually by 11th grade, they surpass their English only students.
Okay. Okay. Move on to the next one. Sorry. Oh, and then just on the slide where you talked about the points of pride and moving on to high school, you said for the yearly improvement on this Spanish placement test. What is that test? It says 100% passed.
That's a test that's given every year. It's part of the master plan. We needed an assessment to sort of gauge and make sure it has a dual purpose. One is to help the students who go on to high school, whichever high school they go to. It helps as a placement test.
To know which Spanish class to take.
Yes, so some of our kids can go into straight Spanish 3, some go into 4. It really depends on where they place and a conversation with our Spanish teacher and the Spanish teachers that they're going to.
Okay.
It also helps, it's part of, it's the final assessment. So they have a project where they have to do the capstone presentation to an entire panel and school. And then they also have this test portion, which includes written, it has a Scantron portion, has an essay portion, and the oral portion, is actually that capstone presentation.
Okay, thank you. And then I think the last thing that I just wanted to say, I think the cultural events are really great. And I just have to say, I've been visited, I think, almost all the schools in the district now. And I wanted to commend your school specifically. I feel a really great sense of community every time that I'm there. And we don't have that at all of the schools. So I think that that's really, it's just a tribute to your leadership, but also a tribute to the families who are there. I wish we had that at all of the schools. You really just, you sense it as soon as you get onto campus. So I just wanted to say that. I think it's fantastic.
So when we say we're proud, we really are.
Yeah. So keep that up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Prusso. Mr. Rogie.
Well, Chatty Cathy said most of everything I wanted to say. But what I'm proud of is to watch you talk about your school. You've assembled a great team, symbiotic team that I can tell filters down through the rest of the school, as I've seen in other events. You've been proactive. You're on point. You have a successful team and a successful school. I'm glad that you're trying to go for that silver and always go for the gold. And
the year after.
I want to congratulate.
But just to be clear, they could only, the highest level they could have gotten the first year is bronze.
Yeah, bronze.
The first year, which they got, and then the second year they can only get silver as the highest, and then the third year they're up for gold. So that is, that's.
But on the other hand, you
And
can
then
push.
platinum.
You can always push it, and somebody say, "Well, you know, they should have gotten the gold." But you know, the rules say.
If I could, I would.
Congratulations, you guys are a great team, and I'm proud to have you guys working for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We love our team.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ogie. Moving to Mr. Wenzel.
Ditto what they said. It's really great to see after being here almost 6 years and how things have transitioned and what's going on in that campus. The creativity, the energy. And then I look at this and I look at you and what you're bringing and I look at your ideas. Hopefully it will go to other schools. The buddy bench, I thought, oh, that's neat. And other schools can do some of these simple little things. And I mean, I'm sure all the schools do this. I had a question, I'm a brain fade on this Believes program. What is that?
That's an after-school program.
Right.
And it is a program, go ahead.
No, it's run by the ACES grant, and it is a program where we have about 100 students, grades 1 through 5, and they have lunch, they do PE, they do academics, and homework support, and then they get nutrition, and then they get a dinner before they go home, and they get picked up about 6 o'clock. So it's a very large program. You saw all the after-school programs. We're really busy at night. We're the city that never sleeps, I think. But they're one of our major programs going on after school.
And so the ACES program is called After School Education and Safety. It's grant funded, and it stands for Broadens and Enriches Lives, Instills Educational Values, Encourage Students. It's easier to say believes.
Believes.
Thank you.
No, it's excellent to see all the things that are going on there and the support of the community and the things you do. It's looking back, looking at and reading here the sports programs. It was hard to get coaches. And I remember my girls were going over and playing, and then they would coach over, and they're, basically freshmen, sophomores keep coaching because it was difficult to find coaches. And you're doing that now, and it just seems like it's a great opportunity for the kids to play sports when it was hard 4 years ago to even find a coach, and you've done that. And it's always wonderful to go when you host the Science Odyssey, and I mean, that's such a great event. So thank you for your great work. Oh, and lastly, when I see something like this, what can we do? So as we're doing, all these things, we look at budgets and stuff. I look at this and, we did improve on what we could for the campuses on counseling. Because I can see that this campus probably has a need, or, when you start doing the numbers versus other campuses based on what we have. So how is that going for your campus?
I will say, and I think I've said this before, we went from a half-time counselor to a full-time counselor, and we have seen a lot of cases. We use the term of 5150, a student who is in crisis, who needs to go with the police. We, ever since we had our full-time teacher, I mean, I don't really want to go specific numbers, but we have dramatically increased that number, so to almost nothing. Decreased that number to almost nothing. The fact that we have a counselor there every day has impacted our school, and I can tell you there's waiting lists. We are so busy, and we have an amazing counselor, and she works every second. We do need more counseling support. We lost Horizons. That was a big, we gained the counselor, the half-time counselor, so we have a full-time now, but Horizons has kind of drifted off. So we always had another person there, so we could always use that help. But we're really looking at the trauma. A lot of our students have and are in trauma situations, and we're looking at how we can help them and support them so they can so they can learn, so they can perform on tests. So really just to support us in the sense of come look at the programs, look at what we're doing, and we invite you to come to a cost meeting and see the way what we do for those students. And but definitely any type of social emotional, I think, is the first step to the education process. We have to take care of them first. So, anything?
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with cost? We keep on saying it, but are you familiar with it?
Go ahead. Just for the
people watching. It's like triage. You get you find out what the teacher is recommending or the counselor is recommending about a student, and we talk about them for a short bit of time, And then we decide, okay, let's have this person go see this person. Let's have this student go see this person. And so
Or if it's academics,
yeah.
We look at their entire CUME, their test scores. Do they need an SST? Do they need to go to a special ed assessment? Or how to help their families if their families are in crisis. It can be anything.
Yeah. And then one more thing, because you asked what else can we do. I would love to see more intervention in the class, like from bell to bell, rather than after school. Because after school intervention sometimes can be very hard to hold on to the student. But if they're there from bell to bell, then that's when we have them.
Especially math.
Yeah, and math intervention is I think
in the day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wenzel. Mrs. White?
Yes, I can recall about the dual immersion program. One time I was speaking with a teacher, and in a teacher's very professional way, the way only teachers can do, she stared me in the eye and said, Mrs. White, all 7-year-olds are learning language. We might as well teach them about language than we teach them about English language and about Spanish language and how they're complementary. And I thought to myself, well, she's right. Every 7-year-old, 5, 6, 7, 10-year-old is learning English and Spanish at your school. Another teacher stared me in the face one time and she said, Mrs. White, what we do at school is good for students. We get them here as early as we can and keep them as long as we can so that they can benefit from all the good things we do. And it sounds like you're doing not only bell to bell, but dawn to dark. Yes. So, do you have enough lights? So we're grateful to you and to the support you're giving our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nicely presented. Thanks for the update. You guys do have your hands full. If you guys, we were talking about where you could use help. I mean, if you to maybe put it in a way that, I'd like to hear is, on a day-to-day, it sounds like you have a lot of kids and you're dawn to dark. But what's your single biggest challenge?
I'll tackle it. I think and we've already touched on it a little bit, is that, as Dana said, is that we have a lot of families in real trauma. And so it's been wonderful to bring these programs to light. PBIS, Choose Love, those things have enabled us to really take a look at what our kids need. Our kids need stability. A lot of our kids, not all of our kids, but a lot of our kids, they rely on us for that stability, and really they're learning from our staff. And I mean really learning. I don't mean just learning ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. I mean learning how to live and that there is joy in life and you can overcome. So I think the counseling piece is huge. At our district, at our school site, it is huge. Any program, we just glop onto any program that we can, because what works for some set of kids doesn't always work for another set of kids. So we are not only diverse in culture, we are diverse in strategies. So we like to take a little bit of everything, and then sometimes we just then do it the Junction way. So what we need is, I think, that continued support of understanding that our kids need to know they're loved before they're ready to tackle on learning to read and to do arithmetic. So whatever that encompasses, send it our way.
and that's helpful. I mean, I appreciate your energy, because when you're challenged, to me, that's the number one thing. If you don't have energy, it's just going to burn you out. Right. And you can feel the energy at that school when I've been there. And I know that starts with you, Ms. Taylor. It starts there, and you have a great staff, and you can feel it all the way down. You can feel it throughout. The ladies that are cooking, people that are working on the art, you can feel it. Mm-hmm. And it's helpful to hear it in that way for me, because it is. I mean, we're fortunate that we have a superintendent and staff that has an eye on those type of things. When that Choose Love came through, that could easily just be seen as a little niche thing, something that you might do for a month. But when it really, truly helps at your school and other schools, things like that might come along. That's a rare one. It's a really good one. But when things like that come along, to me, it kind of gives us the ability to say, hey, they might be able to use this at Junction. So it's very, very appreciated, and you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't always clap for information items, but yours was especially enthusiastic and exciting. Oh, so you're getting a whole round of applause over here. An aplausa in Espanol, see?
All righty.
So let's see if
Aquatics.
Mr. Van Chack can earn his applause. I don't know if that's what he's seeking, but he will be presenting for information only, and very important to know that this is not an action item intentionally because it's in a draft form, and we would like to take additional input as we prepare that eventually will come back to our board in draft in a full-fledged form. But this is our aquatics plan. We've been hard at work.
Thank you, Dr. Bowers. Good evening, board members. Tonight I bring to you an aquatics plan, which is really a combined effort from many departments in our district. Bond, maintenance operations, curriculum, human resources. It really is a representation and work from a lot of different people. I think it's fair to say that one of the most important components of opening new facilities is the development of a plan to use and maintain them properly. And I know the board has had conversations about the trust that our community puts in us to take their tax dollars and build new facilities and make sure that those facilities stay nice for as long as possible. And so part of the plan that I will discuss this evening is the path that we will take to make sure that this phenomenal new state-of-the-art pool is something that we're proud of for many, many years. And this is really an opportunity as we develop new facilities, and this is really the first signature project that will be completed. This is an opportunity for us to review our policies around use and care. And so, like I said, tonight is the beginning of what will be a number of different plans, whether it's the Granada Aquatics or the Livermore High Gymnasium or the new center at East Avenue, multi-story building, whatever it is. We will be bringing to the board and the community our plan to use and maintain. I think we've talked before, and it bears repeating the value of aquatics, not just for the extracurricular component, which is water polo, swimming, diving, but also the value that our students get from it in physical education classes. Not all districts have swimming programs. We value the swimming in Livermore primarily because we think it's very important for our students to leave high school with the ability to be safe in the water. Part of being in California is being around water, and we want to make sure our students are safe when they're out in, whether it's Lake Del Valle or the Pacific Ocean or wherever it is. And so we really recognize the value of aquatics, and that's one of the reasons I think our community supported these new aquatic centers. So there's really 4 components to the aquatics plan. Pool safety, which we're going to talk a little bit about tonight. There's also the staffing component, which we brought to the board in December and includes new jobs, lifeguards and aquatics coordinators. We also have a community use plan, which will be the process we go through to make sure that the community has an opportunity to use and use appropriately the new facility. And then the pool specs and maintenance requirements component of it, which is how are we going to take care of this facility so that, again, it stays in great shape for many, many years. The new pool, as I'm sure you know, is roughly 3 times the size of the existing high school pool. We think it's going to get a tremendous amount of use from the community. I think it's going to be really something that we're very, very proud of. And we just need to make sure that we've got about 2 months, 3 months maybe before the opening of the pool. We need to make sure that we're prepared for that. And these are the 4 components of this aquatics plan. Again, tonight what I'm bringing to the board for review and comment, as well as the public, is the pool safety component of it. And again, without going into too much detail, I know the board has had a chance to review it, and I thank those board members for their input, particularly Mrs. White and her command of the English language and her edits. Much appreciated. This plan also will go to our swim instructors, water polo coaches, those who are familiar with how to best use the pool and maintain it. And so this is the beginning of it. Again, it's in draft form. The board has an opportunity to review, and we'll add pieces to it. It really is the combination of recommendations made by the American Red Cross, associations that are involved in the development of pool safety rules, et cetera. That's where we kind of culled this plan from. And again, a number of different components to it. You can see some of those listed there, what our process is going to be for keeping the pool safe, for making sure that students are cared for, how are we going to manage the locker rooms, the pool, what are the rules going to be, not just for PE classes, but for water polo, for community use, things like that. What's our inspection process going to be? And so again, we want to have this very comprehensive look at how we're going to manage this fantastic new facility. And so again, what you see in the report tonight is a lot about pool safety. And again, it's in draft form. We'll go back and review it probably a couple of times before we finalize it. Again, the next step is sending this out to different folks, having them review it, making sure that it meets the needs of all of our coaches and keeps our kids in the community safe. We will then complete the community use component of that, which I will bring to you in February, and we will begin work on the maintenance component, which I will bring to you in March. And that is, the maintenance portion of it is reliant in large part upon the advice given to us by the installers themselves. And so they're busy at work putting this pool in. When they're done, they're going to give us a whole checklist of things that we need to do on a regular basis to make sure that the facility stays in nice shape. So those are the next steps. Like I said, over the next 6 weeks or 7 weeks, I'll bring these pieces to you one by one. When the plan is complete, there'll be 4 components, and with all good fortune, this will be done well in advance of the pool opening to our group and to the community. Again, the superintendent's recommendation, as Dr. Bowers mentioned, this is an information item, so I invite comment, critique, whatever it is you think may have been left out or needs to be modified. I'm glad to hear those comments tonight and into the next few weeks.
Thank you very much. We'll start with Mrs. White.
Yes, as I was reading the plan, I was aware that there was a written test that students who are in the class have to pass, get 100% on before they can get in the water. I would encourage all of you to try to complete that test. But there were other places I recall where students were assigned to particular areas in the pool, presumably more shallow or more deep. But there was no information about a swimming test that they had to pass or that would provide information to the instructor as to where to place them. As one who had to be rescued from my first swimming class, I guess I'm particularly sensitive to this. So as maybe it was embedded in something that I didn't grasp, but I think that would be a part of this that we need to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. White. Move to Mrs. Prusso.
Yeah, I was looking for that same thing, and that's why I know that it is in there.
It is?
It is, but it didn't say specifically what that swim test would be. It just said that there would be a swimming skills test so that the instructor would know what ability levels. Is that same?
Go back and read very carefully.
Yeah, it's right after the written test section, but it wasn't very specific. I don't know if it needs to be, but I would recommend the Boy Scouts of America swim test. I think they have a really good program for putting people into different ability groups, buddy system, all of that stuff. Something to maybe look at. It's a 100-yard swim. And depending on how far you go.
For 100 years?
100 yards.
Well, becoming a swimmer is not a criteria for graduating from high school in California, but it was in Indiana. So I had to pass this class and get placed and learn how to swim.
Yeah. I don't really have any questions. I looked through it, and I think I understand that it's a draft. I appreciate that you're bringing in stakeholders. I think they'll probably have better input even than we can. But also, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate that our district has a priority to having a swimming program. I think it's really, really important that everyone knows how to swim and be safe. So I think that's important, and I would hope that all of the required PE classes also require a swimming section. And obviously, maybe not to graduate, but I think it's a great program, and I'll happily support anything that I can to make sure that it's a strong one. So thanks for putting this together.
Thank you, Ms. Prusso. Move to Mr. Rogie.
I read this a couple times. I found it to be laborious, but not for any particular bad reason. It just seemed like when I've seen rules like this before, in a matter of time, some of the stuff will start being skipped because it is so much. And I haven't figured out a way to condense it because it does cover so much. But I did want to ask, what are they taking swimming for? Are they learning to swim? Are they learning a sport? What is going on in the swimming class? I never thought to ask this before, but.
The primary focus is water safety. I mean, there's a cardiovascular component to it, but that can be met through other activities. So I think the most important thing is they want students to feel as though they can get in the water and be safe. Part of a confidence building portion of it.
Okay, so I understand the safety side of the test. I guess what everybody else is looking at is an evaluation of your skills in the water. If you're a water polo, if you play water polo, your skills are a lot different than your divers or anybody who doesn't know how to swim. And I'm always curious about how they handled students who have never swam before, because to throw them in a class with maybe 80% swimmers, that person might get lost. And I know this is what your safety rules are trying to establish, but then all your time moves towards those people who don't have skills. And that you're spending 80% of your focus on 20% of your class and not everybody else. And as I was reading through it, on the deck you'd have a lifeguard and you'd have a physical education teacher. What's the typical size of the class then? Is there a limitation on the size of the class?
Yeah, a typical PE class is around 40 students, and so our expectation in a class like that is will be an instructor who will not be focused on lifeguard activities. We'll have 2 lifeguards on the deck to make sure that kids are safe, and
Okay.
the job of the teacher is to teach the class.
So all the physical education teachers will be taught water safety, and to a certain point, will it be required to be lifeguards?
Yep. Water safety for sure. Lifeguards will be present as well as the instructor. So
But
we're not expecting the instructor to participate in lifeguard activities. I mean, certainly there for water safety, but that's why we're going to make sure that we have lifeguards present at all times.
Or are those positions interchangeable?
No.
No.
There's an instructor and then there's lifeguards.
Well, no, I mean, can the instructor also be a lifeguard?
At a
as
different
sole
setting,
duty?
but not simultaneous.
If they're
Oh, that's right.
certified, if they're a certified lifeguard, of course.
Is that going to be a requirement that
So multiple
Lifeguards.
times in the plan, we say that they cannot have a dual simultaneous
No,
role.
no, I understand
But
that.
It is possible to have.
But they can have dual jobs. They can have different times. So
Exactly.
the instructor may be a lifeguard in the next class, but not the instructor in that class. And is that going to be a
That's a
requirement?
possibility. That's not our intent. Our intent is that the instructors be instructors and then we hire lifeguards. There may be some instructors who are also certified lifeguards, but that's not an expectation of a PE teacher. The expectation of the PE teacher is that they pass water safety, not that they be certified lifeguards.
Because there will always be a
And
certified
not all PE teachers are strong enough swimmers to be lifeguards, so that's why we're going to make sure that we provide lifeguards as well.
I guess I'd ask another question. Are all PE teachers required to be able to swim to teach this class?
All PE teachers are required to pass water safety. So yes, they need to be able to be safe in the water. They don't need to be strong enough swimmers to be lifeguards, though.
All right, I will probably talk with you further on this as I figure out some
And the plan also includes a matrix of ratio, so as class size were to increase, then the ratio of lifeguards increases. And so, we're trying to anticipate all of those areas. We don't specifically say the cap of the class size, but if it were to increase or decrease, even if this class were down to 1 or 2, there will always be at least a lifeguard and an instructor or coach.
I was thinking about when you said something about the class size is going to be 40 with 2 lifeguards and an instructor. So maybe one part of this plan is to lane off part of the pool. So because the pool's large for 40 people, so they don't wander into areas that start to be impossible to also watch. Too large of an area then you're going to have to have more lifeguards, or you're just going to have to restrict the area that you can swim in. So that's one suggestion I have for you. Thank you.
And students who are of certain age, and we have many of our students are already certified lifeguards, and they work at Shadow Cliffs or the new pool plate or whatever that aqua park is and aquatic park is in Dublin. Many work at Robert Livermore, and so that's also a new feature for student teacher aides to actually be in a lifeguard position as well. But we haven't gone to that yet because we haven't had this capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Rogie. Mr. Wenzel?
I think it's very comprehensive. I'm reading through it, and I mean, it's like, I don't know, it doesn't talk about blood. And I don't know if it's, I mean, maybe it's worked into open source. I remember watching back in the day, water polo and how, some of the games got really bad. And they kept playing. I mean, this is aging myself, late 70s. And they kept playing, and the argument was, well, there's plenty of chlorine, it's not an issue. And it's like, oh, okay. It doesn't state it in here, how to approach that. So I don't know if that's, or unless it's in a language that covers it.
So because I asked the same question, but for a different reason, because of feminine issues. And so it's under bodily fluids. So it's not exactly spelled out with what's the cause of it, but it is in there. And there is a protocol, but we could flesh it out more if we need to.
I think it's similar to like in a basketball game when their blood appears on if there's a cut or something, they're not allowed to participate until they've been cleared. And so there's a medical person there to handle that in competition.
Well, like anything else, I mean, you have to have it in writing because some parent or someone's going to say, well, it doesn't say it in here. And then is there equipment for that employee? Because I thought I read in here that they have to have a phone to call 911. So if it's a piece of equipment, does the school provide it? Or is there other positions in the school district that their phone is personal and they can use it for work?
Yeah, there'll be a phone there, a hardwired phone at the pool as well, but we'll also have the expectation that there's a cell phone available in case the hard line isn't working. That's a great question. I wouldn't assume that we would expect an employee to have their own phone for safety purposes. That would be something that we would expect maybe the school to provide that would be out there at all times.
And in fact, what we've learned from our other districts is that if it is a mixed use, that then the likelihood that the person could be distracted by personal cell phone use could be a problem. So the recommendation from other districts on the safety issue, and probably Keenan, is that whatever communication, whether it's a walkie-talkie or a phone or a landline, that it not be mixed with personal. Because if some personal message came across and were distracting, it could take them away from either the lifeguarding or the task at hand, which is to teach or coach. So that was a pretty clear recommendation, but again, it might not be spelled out here, so that's a good point, because it might be clear to us because we've heard all of this dialogue, but if it's not represented, then it's supposed to be the communication device, whatever we determine, has to be distinct from the personal use.
Because we built positions like this before, and it's amazing what they fall back on when things go bad. And so it's like you had to write, even to the point where you come to work because it has to be physical, you have to dive in and do these things that I don't know, there's a wording for it, how to be healthy when you come to work. But it's so important for you to pay attention in what you do and to go into the pool and, provide life-saving. So, and it probably is in there because I read it a couple times and I'm picking up more that I missed before. So, but I thought it was pretty comprehensive at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Wenzel. We'll revisit with Mr. Rogie.
One of the things that was just brought up, but when you have an emergency and the lifeguards are activated, I didn't read it and it might be in there, but what is the protocol to make sure all the students are out of the pool during an emergency? I mean, that should be spelled out. Somebody's got to be attentive to make sure all the students are out of the pool, because like any crowd scene, students are going to want to crowd around. Then you start losing track of where people are in the water. And that scene safety and crowd safety thing is a very important part, especially when you're talking about with water in a pool. And then also, is there, and I didn't see it in here, but will you have an AED on the pool? Oh, is it in there? I probably got lost in the details, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogie. Yeah, I appreciate seeing it in the front so we can make some comments on it. And I have full faith, because I know that there's been a lot of conversation, especially in light of some of the very, very unfortunate things that have happened with some districts, and how we've paid a lot of attention to detail in terms of trying to be on the front end, being state-of-the-art, putting a lot of work into this. One thing you mentioned was on the maintenance side. And with this, and as we're starting to put these new facilities in, will we have the opportunity to look at, because you mentioned you have to have some things in place, will we have the opportunity to look at some of the protocols? You know, when we put new stadiums in, we put in new athletic complexes, we put in new classrooms. In terms of what maintenance, operations, facilities, MOF, what their protocols will be on those new facilities so that we can actually see, we've talked about this over the years, you know, like checklists, like what do we do pre-school in July? And what's our expectation for maintenance? Because it's always, to me, it's always unfortunate when something's dilapidated and it's kind of futile and it kind of falls away and people change and people don't really understand it. But when it's brand new, we have the opportunity to set expectations. And so my question is, will we have an opportunity to look at that? And also the staffing that goes along with it. You know, if a person is maintaining 10,000 feet and now they have 15,000 square feet, is there enough? Do we have ratios and things like that? Do we need to add people to staffing? That's my question.
Yeah, so the first answer is yes, you will get a chance to look at those. And again, I'll bring the community use component to this in February and then the maintenance in March. We expect that that's going to be modified, not just between March and the beginning of the pool, the opening of the pool, but you know, through the first 6 months, we're going to recognize things that maybe we hadn't before, like what's the process for a community use group to come in and get trained on use of equipment and things like that. I'd say probably at first we're going to overstaff a little bit in terms of maintenance. The maintenance staffing is based upon ultimately having 2 pools the same size, and so we'll give that maintenance person a chance to kind of get up to speed with just the 1 pool in place for the first couple of years. And so I think, you know, we're going to err on the side of maybe over maintaining it to begin with to make sure that it doesn't fall into disrepair. But you'll definitely get a chance to look at that, the maintenance plan in March, and have some feedback for that.
And this was also kind of a board priority set last spring, and some of you might recall it was even put in writing for part of the evaluation and goals, which is that our board has a chance to review all of our maintenance protocols and for our newer facilities. And we had a great discussion about it today in cabinet, and our very experienced bond program team was headed by Kim McNeely. She was sharing with us some of her experience from other districts, and so she's making recommendations based on her professional expertise as well as practical experience. And it is really key that we don't just continue status quo, that we say, here's a brand new facility, this is how we want to keep it and maintain it. These are all of the things that we must do and will do and we monitor to do, as well as even before we release, that's for our use. And then when there is even another set and sometimes a gap as we prepare for community then use, because then how do we monitor and oversee that? Because we do want people to be able to use our facilities, but then we have to have very strict guidance and training and helping so that when people come in to use our facility, we don't come in on Monday and find things in disrepair or unsafe as a result of the community folks who've used it. So there's almost 2 sets there. And so it's a really big focus, and they have lots of experience on things that have worked well and what has not. So we're going to learn from that as well.
Great.
But
thank you very much. Riley?
I just have 2 questions. It kind of interests me because I used to swim and play water polo. One, I was looking at the daily pool safety inspection log, and it says pool temperatures is safe for swimmers. Are we going to put like a specific range on what that is?
Yeah, and that's those specs will be given to us by after the installation of the pool's done. And so we didn't want to define those yet until the folks who are the experts in the pools gave us that information.
Okay, that makes sense. And then another thing is just looking at locker room safety. I think it's important that we, I don't know what like the actual layout of the facility is, but that we designate one bathroom to like a gender neutral space for non-binary students. I think that's really important that we might look at that, especially because in the locker room, you know, you're changing things like that. So maybe students in transition, it'd be nice to have a more private space.
Fair enough. Yeah. Thank you. Ready? No further questions.
I would just like to add in that this is just the beginning of that conversation, and so as we read or revisit it or look back, please continue to send concepts, you can send them directly to me, to Kathy, Mrs. McConnell, to Mr. Van Schack. He's kind of leading it. But if it's staffing related, Melissa's contributing, and Mr. Vanoy did a lot of the research and gathering together as well. So if you send it our way, we'll make sure, because it's going to be a living document. And then can I just add one thing else? I'm just kind of excited. Granada High School boys just beat Dublin in their varsity basketball game.
That's a big deal.
I just, I'm just feeling it subliminally. No, I believe that we've heard the cheering all the way from Granada.
Competition.
Is that Granada's first win?
No, I think they're undefeated.
Just kidding. I know that.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mr. Van Schack, and we should give him applause because we applauded earlier and he earned it.
Okay, if we can introduce our next item, please.
Certainly. It's my pleasure to invite Mrs. Kim McNeely, who we've just been speaking about and her contributions with the bond. She's here to actually ask for board authority to move forward with a very exciting East Avenue Middle School contract.
Thank you. Sorry, technical excitement. Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers and Cabinet, I'm here to provide you an update this evening on the East Avenue Middle School new classroom building project and to request authorization to award the lease-leaseback contract for that project. As always, just a brief recap probably for the community more than the board. I think you're fairly familiar with the project, but a brief review of the scope of this project. We're getting ready to embark on phase 2 of the plans for the East Avenue campus. That's a new classroom building, a 24,000 square foot, 2-story classroom building, 16 new classrooms, lobby area with a large display space, restroom facilities, and then site work associated with putting this new building on the campus. Just again, a reminder for you and the community of the building elevation. This is actually the view from the center courtyard, looking west on the campus. I put an inset image in there as well so that it helps everyone orient. If you look at the inset image, the top of that image is East Avenue and the bottom is the playfield area. If you look to the left of the image, the yellow building is the new building that we're talking about for East Avenue. The process we followed to get to the recommended contract award this evening is as follows. In June of 2019, the board approved the lease-leaseback contracting method for this project. In September of 2019, the board approved the contractors pool who were qualified to submit proposals on our projects. You will probably recall 2 of the board members were actually part of the interview panel that selected those contractors. In September, we received Division of State Architect approval for this project, and in October, we requested proposals from the firms that were approved by the board. Toward the end of November, we received proposals. Those were reviewed by staff, and questions and clarifications were done over the month of December. The project schedule and the recommended contract amount are shown, but in recap, the project will start next month as currently scheduled, and the completion and occupancy will be summer fall of 2021. The lease-leaseback proposed contract amount is $12,558,969. The award is recommended to Roblin Contracting Incorporated. This is within the engineer's estimate for the project, and so that's always a huge benchmark and an exciting part of any proposal review is that we're within the planned budget for the project. The next steps in the process are of course, this evening's recommended approval of the contract. We will then move to finalization of that contract. That requires us getting bonds, insurance, and confirming all contract documents. Once that happens, a notice to proceed will be issued, and as I said, the project is scheduled to start in February. Papers are not cooperating. The superintendent's recommendation is that our Board of Trustees approve the lease-leaseback contract for the East Avenue Middle School new classroom building project this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I make a motion. I move that we approve the contract with Robelin to build a two-story building at East Avenue. Project Phase 2 of the new classroom building. Get some magic words in there.
That sounded good to me.
And I second.
We have a motion by Mrs. White, seconded by Mrs. Prusso. Any discussion? I would just clarify that it is to support the superintendent's recommendation for the leaseback at East Avenue Middle School for new classroom building project. Just so there's no misconception.
Okay. I hope you include the name of the contractor in your words.
Yes, you did. Yeah, no, I wasn't changing. I was just simply amending. Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Mr. Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Yes, Mrs. Prusso?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Mr. Wenzel?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. That's a big move for the community right there.
Just, you thought special ed could spend money until you read their bills.
And next, we have Mr. Scott Vernoy, our Director of Student Services, and he has the next two items, one for a second reading in policy and one for a first reading.
Good evening, President Bueno, Superintendent Bowers, members of the board and cabinet. Tonight it is my pleasure to bring to you Board Policy 3551 for a second reading. Here is the timeline that we have followed. First posting on November 21st. First reading, December 2nd. Second posting, December 12th. And then tonight, second and final reading, January 14th. So this is a replacement of an existing board policy and administrative regulation. Board policy and administrative regulation 3551, food services, operations, and cafeteria fund. Districts participating in the National School Lunch or Breakfast Program are mandated to adopt policy addressing delinquent meal charges, which ensures students eligible to receive free or reduced lunch price. Reduced price meals are not treated differently from other students. A couple of the significant modifications that have been included is that we shall establish strategies and procedures for the collection of the meal payment, including delinquent meal payments, and that we shall ensure that a student whose parent or guardian has unpaid school meal fees or student who is enrolled in free or reduced price meal program is not overtly identified by the use of special tokens, tickets, or other means, and shall ensure that the pupil is not shamed or treated differently from other pupils. The superintendent's recommendation is to approve the second and final reading from the Board Policy Administration regulation from Series 3000. I'd be glad to answer any questions at this time.
We'll start with Mr. Rogi.
Fundamentally, I don't have any problem with the wording because it is just an update for the law. But I would not normally have mentioned this, but it's already been out in several publications about the way the law reads, that it's going to parallel what happened with sports, where funding is not going to be paid by parents. They're just not even, I've read one article that says they're not even going to register free or reduced lunch because of the way the law reads. Our policy in this part is fine, but are we going to, we're going to have to address that section of it since our food service has to be self-sustaining. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Rogi. Mrs. White?
Well, I've read similarly that parents are just going to expect to get free lunch. And there is no free lunch. Somebody pays. And if they're Title I students, we're supported, but if they're not Title I students, we're not. So this is a mixed blessing. our students, in fact, should not be shamed for not being able to pay. But on the other hand, those who are able to pay need to pay.
So this was topic came up at Northern California superintendents because it's not unique to Livermore. And so there was a lot of really healthy dialogue. And so there's quite a few of us that are going to be contributing strategies about how to get the word out. One district, I think it's Elk Grove, is doing something called More Than a Meal, which is a way of communicating that if you have free and reduced lunch status, you do get the meal, but there's lots of other supports that come along with that that we're able to provide for district-wide or community-wide or throughout the state for students who are in those categories. So it isn't even, some students don't necessarily want to eat the whole meal or whatever it is, but then if they're in that category and they qualify, other funding comes for other reasons, such as LCFF and local control funding formula. So that's a pretty neat campaign, and they even have some videos about it. So explaining to parents, and they're in multiple languages, so that you shouldn't be ashamed of being in that category, that it's a high cost of living, and depending on your family size and other means, you might be in that category, but that to come forward and to sign up, and then you get other benefits. And then others are working on some forgiveness programs and for donations where there are people who will sponsor and pay the gap. And then the other part is just information. So we're sharing with Parent Club Information Council. We'll be sharing with that group so that they can explain to parents that, as you said, the money, it isn't just free, then it's the cost is coming from elsewhere. But it did sound to me that if many school districts are in a position where now they will have to try to subsidize and it won't be self-sufficient, and it may even show up in audits as something that is not being funded. So then the other option, and Susan Kinder did this, our assistant superintendent, Susan, actually met with some of our state lawmakers, because sometimes what happens, with all due respect, you're all elected officials as well, sometimes well-intentioned lawmakers will make one law that sounds, and that is for the right reasons and good intentioned, but then sometimes there is an unintended consequence that can come. So laws, if they don't follow the true intent, then can sometimes be adjusted or modified, and so there is that avenue. And so she did a great job of sharing the same article that Trustee Rogie mentioned with Senator Glazer, and they've actually asked follow-up questions, and then we're backing up with real numbers to show the gap. So there is hope that there might be change. Again, not to go back to and we've never shamed students anyway, it's always very discreet, but it's not to take away from that part of the law, but it's also to address the unintended consequences that people who can pay and have means should. So there's a lot to go with this. But we do have to have a policy in place to address this part, to follow the law.
Yes, I think this puts us in alignment with the mandated piece of the law, but child nutrition is also actively creating information for our parents to help them understand the importance of free and reduced lunch, as well as a process for receiving payment for monies that are due.
I guess the point I would make is, and I do see it as a difference. I think you may have some unintended consequences, as Trustee Rogie mentioned, but to me the fundamental difference is here, when it was athletics or it was music, it's kind of an elective thing, and maybe even though the politics was a little bit different then, some people may have looked at it and said, well, why should we pay if someone else doesn't have to pay? But I would hope that anyone, especially our community, so supportive of schools, would look at this and say, eating is not elective. And to look at this in a more empathetic light, to say that, the school takes on quite an obligation to meet basic nutritional needs of children so that they can actually learn and become productive members of society. And to take the steps so that when someone is utilizing that service, that they're not shamed, is a respectful step. And for someone to take the next step, or to the unintended consequence, maybe in this case, to say, well, if someone else is not paying, then even though I have the ability to, I'm not. I think that in this community, that will be the rare exception. Just given the people who live in this community, how supportive they are of education, I think the people will differentiate there. I really do. I don't even think that has to be an ask. I just think people will. There might be a few who might go that route, but I really think that number is going to be small. And I think that as we watch the number so carefully here, that if we watch that number and we see it, then maybe we could act on it. But I think that acting on it prior to getting the data might be premature. I think I would rather give the benefit of the doubt to the community in this instance.
And we would agree, we do know that the number is growing, though. It's increased probably since, what, 3 times as much as it was before. And so we also are going to be doing a better job of making it easier to pay and easier to be communicated with. We actually have some families who don't have an idea that their children are are coming up. They're sending in with food and the kid goes through the line. So sometimes so we have to work on, there's just many things as we've looked into this. We have parents who say they don't want their child to have lunch. They have a different lunch that they're providing, and they're saying don't give them food, but we can't deny food. So we have to come up with ways for that. So again, it might be the exception, but we don't want it to become the norm. So,
Yep, I understand.
so that's where it's kind of in between both of what you're saying. We have to monitor the one and our procedures. It's just a different role for us. We usually have remained sort of silent, and people have paid on the honor system and gone forward. And now we have to make sure people are communicated with to know this is the status and this is what is due. So.
Any further discussion on this? This is an action item. I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the second and final reading from Board Policy Administrative Regulation from Series 3000, I believe, 3551.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Prusso, been seconded by Mr. Wenzel. Is there any discussion on the motion? Mr. Clerk, you call the roll, please.
Yes, Mrs. White?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Mr. Wenzel?
Aye.
Mrs. Prusso?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next policy I have for you is Board Policy 1112, Media Relations. This is a revision of an existing board policy, and this is first reading. Here is the current timeline that we're following. It's a revision of an existing board policy. Policy is being updated to encourage the establishment of priorities and key messages for proactive communications with the media to align what we're currently doing. Some significant modifications include the superintendent designee and board shall periodically establish priorities and key messages for proactively communicating with the media. The district shall not impose restraints on students' right to speak freely with media representatives, and the superintendent or designee shall develop strategies for working with the media to provide timely and accurate information. The superintendent's recommendation is to approve the first reading from this board policy from Series 1000. I'd be glad to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Benoit. We'll start with Mr. Rogie.
I need some clarification. One section that I read that it sounded like media, like a news organization, can step onto campus and interview a student if the student wants that.
That's not true.
Okay.
They would
I'm
have
hoping-
to check in through the office, and we would have to allow them on campus, which we currently would not to speak to a student. But if a student wanted to speak to a news media outside of school, we would not.
I agree with that. I mean, I just was a little fuzzy on it. It sounded like they can come on campus and interview a student if the student so wanted. So that's controlled through the front office or the staff.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogie. Mrs. White.
Aren't the parents involved in that at all? In giving an interview with a journalist?
So most of the time it's happening at the high school level, and media does have a responsibility, but students do have the right to speak to it without parent.
I would just say my experience has been like this primarily would be like an athletic contest. Like, the local news might come to a football game, and after the game, they might want to talk to a player or something. Anything that happened during the school day, if they wanted to talk to a student, it would go through the principal. The principal would contact the parent, make sure the parent would clear that student to speak to a journalist.
Thank you.
The other incident that sometimes happens is during crisis, though, and we have run interference occasionally when we've had I would say most of the media is very respectful. They already know the rules. They don't want to, but they will wait across the street, or they'll try to catch a kid as they're walking home. And sometimes parents will actually engage too to give a perspective on something. We did have one unfortunate time during a lockdown kind of issue where we had some media people who tried to text or contact people through kids and ask them to take photos and send things outside. And so we intervened once we knew of that. The student showed the parent showed us, and then we actually wrote letters to that particular media group, and there were discipline consequences and an apology. So, they do have, but our students do have, like we all do, freedom of expression and so we have a free press, and so, it's always within limits. But sometimes we invite, for special occasions, we will invite the press to come, or we have, a great community engagement department, and they provide press releases, and then we provide statements for that. So I would say we've cultivated really healthy relations with our media, and they're increasingly understanding and respectful, and they wait actually for our messages often instead of just taking internet chatter as the truth.
I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. White. If there's no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion on this.
Mr. President, I move that we approve Board Policy 11121, Media Relations, Series 3000?
No, there's
Sorry.
1,000. For first reading.
Sorry.
1,000,
excuse me.
First reading is all.
First reading. Sorry.
Are we?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Wenzel, seconded by Mrs. White, in support of the superintendent's recommendation to approve the first reading of board policy from Series 1000. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Mr. Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Yes, myself, aye. Mrs. Pruso?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
Mr. Wenzel?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I move that we approve consent items 11-2 through 11-20. I do have one comment on 11-7, if I can be permitted to make a comment.
Yes, Mr. Ogie.
This is on gift giving. Again, I would like to, on behalf of the board, say thank you for everybody that gives gifts and donations to our schools. They're much appreciated. And as usual, please keep on giving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ogie.
I have a couple questions on 11.2, 11.12. If we just ask.
No, we're going to pull them then. We'll pull them.
Well, it's just, then we vote on it, then I want to ask a question after the fact. I'm going to vote yes
Okay.
on this, but I have questions about it, just for clarity, how this was written. So when people ask 11.9, can I talk about it, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's.
Okay.
So, what was it? 11.9, the manufactured home, we're selling for $5. So when people see that, I know we're saving a lot of money that we wouldn't have to take it down and stuff. Is there a ballpark figure that what it would cost the district for us to dispose of that?
About 11,000.
11,000. Thank you.
And the value of the home was about 5,700.
Right.
So we were very thankful we could find somebody to take it from us for essentially free.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure it was clear. And then the second thing on 11.12, there's a credit changeover of about $55,000. Do we get a update where we're at with this budget? Because there's been a few of these and then an extra cost. Will we get something in the next couple of months regarding where we're at, the overall costs? I was hoping just for a yes and not. I'm sure you're going to do this, but when I saw that and then it started opening up, and I remember other ones and where are we at, and so is this a quarterly thing? We're going to get an update overall budgetary, where we're at? on
Yes,
the
we'd
bond?
be happy to. We are reconciling as these projects are closing, and we'd be happy to provide that to you.
I mean, it doesn't have to, I mean, is it going to be going forward once a quarter where we're at in total?
Yeah, we absolutely can. We really haven't decided how frequently, but we work with business. We have reconciliations actually to the month. So as projects close, we absolutely, we're actually just really in the early stages of closing some of these projects out. So we absolutely can provide you a reconciliation of budget to actual and then what the residual funds are. At this point, we have had several meetings to that effect, and those balances do go to the fund. So we can absolutely provide that for you. It's
Does that give a
easy to
ballpark,
do.
ballpark figure to people they ask, how much are we spending?
Just, I just want to intervene, and if, we're going to pull that item.
Well, you don't have to pull it.
No, we're not going to pull it. We're only going to pull it for separate discussion, and we'll vote on it separately.
Yeah.
Because we're going into a more lengthy discussion, and so it doesn't fall under the spirit of consent. So we're not pulling it from the agenda. We're going to pull it for a separate vote. That's all. Because we're discussing it, and we're asking staff a little bit more detail. And so my recommendation is that we just take that item out separately, because we are discussing it. So we have, this is just a point of order. We have a motion on the floor to approve the consent items in their entirety. We've taken a separate item, 1112. We're going to pull that for Mr. Wenzel. I'm going to ask for a, well, no, because it was, no, it's not.
Well, I know.
It's just for keeping track of things, that's all. It's just for order.
I should have just called you.
I'm going to ask for a second.
I'll second.
I'm going to ask
I
for
will
a second.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask for a second
I'll second.
on the consent items, 11-2 through 11-11,
Yes,
and 11-13 through 11-20.
correct.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? Mr. Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Mrs. Pruso?
Aye.
Mr. Wenzel?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye.
Sorry.
And now, we'll return to a discussion on item 1112.
Oh.
Which
Actually,
actually
we
could
wait
fall under
till 13.
13.0, but we'll move 13.0
We have
up,
to wait until
which is items removed. for
What's
separate.
that? Oh, yeah, we have to go back, yeah. Okay, consent item resolutions. Any discussion? Did I entertain a motion?
Yes, I have,
Which one?
I have a quick question,
Clarification?
a clarification on 12-8, I'm sorry, 12-7 through 12-9. Is this the point where they're deciding colors, or where does colors come into when it's painted?
Colors.
Oh, we're talking about the colors of the paint for
Resolution.
Christensen and all that.
Painting the buildings,
That
the
comes later.
schools. Then,
No, this is a maintenance item. It's a maintenance facilities item.
oh,
And
okay.
so basically what happens is we're agreeing that we will be going for the exterior painting, and then embedded in the item, it says that once we proceed, the architect design team meets with staff and the principal to come up with a color scheme that's arranged, that then there's a selection, and then we would let you know. Is that right?
We have
Let
to
us know.
approve
That's
the
my-
colors.
That's how he's, under the resolutions, we
Under
have
the resolutions,
issuance of
yes.
notice to bidders for exterior painting at Croce, I think at Smith and
Christensen,
Christensen. So it's a process we went through just with Mendenhall. That's why it's fresh in my mind. Is that accurate, Mr. Wilkie?
Does the board have to approve the color scheme?
No, the board approved the architect designer's professional expertise to give us one that will work.
Whatever.
And I don't choose them either. I don't, because the schools are here forever and we may not be. So it's.
I get the process. I'm just wondering if you could feed back the color schemes to us in case there was something like teal and salmon. I don't know. I don't have the color wheel like that. So
Conservative architects, I hope we have.
all the schools should be green and gold.
So historically, the architect would come in and give them a limited number of colors, and the school site would choose between those limited colors. We don't give them the authority to pick crazy colors that would not
And
match
so it's a
years from now.
palette, and, because I asked the same question, and it's kind of a palette, and they all sort of match within a range. And so, because at one time, if you'll remember, Junction in their Bulldog Spirit was bright purple, which somebody chose probably more individually than maybe through this larger process. And so it no longer is. But what we can do is, as we get closer to that, is show you the range of palettes that are being discussed, so you kind of have an idea.
And then I would like the report back, the final colors reported back to the board. Just-
Oh, of course.
Just for generation.
Tell us your
Or you can drive by and be
Obviously,
surprised.
this turned into a discussion. I apologize.
We're right on the brink.
Okay.
We're right on the brink.
So I'm done with,
Had a little break
It was
and
a
the people are a little
clarification.
chatty.
Okay,
that's all I wanted to know.
okay,
That's
so,
fine.
consent item resolutions.
So Mr. President, I move that we approve consent item resolutions 12-2 through 12-10.
Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rogie, seconded by Mrs. Prusso, to move all consent item resolutions. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Clerk, you'd call the roll?
Yes, Mrs. White?
Aye.
Mr. Wenzel?
Aye.
Mrs. Prusso?
Aye.
Myself, aye. President Bueno.
Aye. No chartreuse. Moving into section 13, we're going to revisit 1112. Mr. Wenzel, if you'd continue.
And before he jumps in, I just wanted to say on this, sometimes this item is a discussion action item. We don't always put it on consent, and we do that particularly when it's a large change order or a larger amount, and so it's perfectly appropriate for you to ask to discuss it.
Mr. Wenzel, we were asking about some dollar amounts or something on 1112.
Yeah.
So have at it.
So I apologize.
No,
But
no.
over time, you lose track. And people have asked how much money we're spending at this school, and so the overall cost and where are we at. So I just needed, when this came up, we were credited back $55,000. We've been credited back before. We spent extra at this school. I think there was one that was like we were over 100,000. So in the overall picture, I just wanted to see if there was something that presented quarterly that, an overview on, because sometimes costs are determined later that it was going to be cheaper, or something unfortunate happens and more. So that was the question that I would like once a quarter, some little summary update. Nothing really too intense.
So I would be happy to work with Ms. Kinder, who we work with regularly to reconcile the fund. As I shared, we are accurate monthly in terms of the reconciliation of the fund. We're more than happy. We have a format already which we could simplify. That could be part of a Measure J update if the board would like on some kind of a regular basis, and I'd be happy to work with her on that to give you actuals for the projects as they're completing. We'd be happy to do that for you.
Is there a chart that you're building that has all that on it?
There is, and so
Yeah.
we could certainly simplify that.
dollars
and-
on it.
Yeah, and share it with you in the community. We'd be happy to do that. Thus far, we are under budget on every project other than the board-approved change order at Granada.
Thank you very much. So I would entertain a motion on 1112.
Wait to say anything. Mr. President, I move that we approve 1112 Measure J bond program contract amendments change order ratification.
I'll second.
A motion by Mr. Wenzel, second by Mr. Rogie. Any further discussion? Mr. Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Yes, myself, aye. Mr. Wenzel?
Aye.
Mrs. Prusso?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
President Bueno.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Moving into board member reports, we'll start with Mrs. Prusso.
I always get to go first. Thank you. I'm just going to touch on some highlights from the holiday season, I guess. For me, anyway, one of them was I was able to go to the Christensen Tea, which is a tradition that they have every year where the leadership class puts on a tea for their teachers. That was really fun. And then also got to be here at the district office when the Rancho kindergartners came in and caroled for everyone here at the district office, and that was really great. They were super cute. And then on the other side of that, we got to go to the district holiday party where the LHS chamber choir came and sang. So we had the spectrum of the kindergartners singing carols and then our chamber choir, and they were it was really well done and okay. And then those were all the great holiday stuff that I was able to attend. And then just this last weekend was able to go to Math Counts where we had representatives from all of our middle schools, and I believe Montessori from the community as well. Mrs. White was there, and just wanted to shout out to Ted Perry, Bill Dunlop, who put a lot of time and effort into the Math Counts program. All of the volunteers, most of them are retired from the lab, and it's just amazing that they spend their time weekly working with these students. Also the teachers, there were teachers there on Saturday for 5 hours, which was very impressive. And of course, Susan Johnston, who puts a lot of time and effort, and the administrators. I believe we had administrators from every single school there as well. So that was well attended, and I can confirm that we have some great mathematicians in our district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. White?
Yes, I did most of the things that Mrs. Prusso just spoke about. I always think it's interesting that the holiday season starts with the turkey lunch at Del Val High School and culminates with the district party at the end of the season with the choir. Math Counts was delightful. We've got powerful mathematicians. And what's remarkable to me is that the group who's observing the final oral competition is so respectful of the competitors. You know, there's no side comments, and there's a great applause for whoever does whatever. And it's just heartening to see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. White. Mr. Wenzel.
The holiday seasons, I think I talked last time that we take it for granted. There are a lot of people don't realize the situation in Livermore with homeless students. I want to thank Mrs. Newkirk and other teachers at Granada High School in organizing a program, working with other groups to support some of our homeless students. We were able to support over 20 students, and from things from gift cards. One of them, she told a story about a student was able to get a keyboard for his computer and he started crying. I mean, these are the things I think people have to pay more attention to in our community. People I talked to donated when I told them the story without any question, gave money, and it was made it easy for me to go out and do these things. Wanted to thank Mike Price and Nicholas Montano Associates. 2 phone calls, and we're able to get enough money to satisfy over 20 people. December 30th, took a look and took some pictures at Granada Pool. The weather was pretty decent, so it's looking very good. Pretty impressive, the work that's getting done over there. Last Friday at the Board and Brush fundraiser for Granada girls basketball, Superintendent Bowers was there, made herself a little sign, and hopefully it'll be posted somewhere with all the parents. A lot of the parents got involved. It was a really fun fundraiser for the girls team. And unfortunately, the girls team lost tonight, 64-46 to Dublin. It's been pretty interesting year. We were 10-0, and all of a sudden on a Saturday, we lost our senior captain. On Monday, we lost another senior captain, and then we made a captain, and then she got hurt. So 3 seniors in a week of our starting 5 had injuries. So we decided that we're not going to make any more captains. It was a jinx. And but it's the girls are great. They're working really hard. Coaches are doing a lot of good work, and hopefully it'll be an enjoyable rest of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wenzel. Mr. Rogie?
First off, I didn't make the math counts for the first time since I've been a board member. Unfortunately, I didn't get to show my math skills at the end, which is probably fortunate for me. I am going to deviate a little bit from my report. I just want to get some facts. As I thought about it all for the last couple of weeks, we're part of a vaping lawsuit. We've joined on the lawsuit. We didn't initiate it, but so I got to thinking about some other things as I've motored around the state. The Centers of Disease Control said that there are reported 2,290 confirmed and probable cases and 5 more deaths of this mysterious respiratory illness tied to vaping. The overall death toll is 47, which is much higher. This is from November 5th. The CDC has called vitamin E acetate a chemical of concern and recommended not adding it to e-cigarettes or vaping products while the investigation's underway. I think they've confirmed that's what the problem is. They've also pointed out vaping oils containing THC and psychoactive ingredient in marijuana as especially being risky. In November 20th, confirmed deaths were reported in 25 states and the District of Columbia, the CDC. Louisiana became the newest state to report a death of the illness. Now, with that said, it's important to talk about vaping, but let's talk about, in 2018, 20.5 million people aged 16 or older drove under the influence of alcohol in the past year. 12.6 million drove under the influence of illicit drugs. It's hard to measure how many crashes are caused by drugged driving, but estimates show that 44% of the drivers in fatal car crashes tested positive for drugs. Driving under the influence of marijuana, opioids, and alcohol have profound effects on driving, which I think we have figured out. Proportionately, drug driving. Combined with drug use, the results can be tragic. Car crashes are the leading cause of death among young people aged 16 to 19. A study of college students with access to car found that 1 in 6 had driven under the influence of a drug other than alcohol at least once in the past. Marijuana was the most common drug used, followed by cocaine and prescription pain relievers. This part's on distracted driving. Fatalities in distracted, affected crashes, 3,166. Of them, the drivers were 1,832, passengers were 735, miscellaneous other occupants. Total distracted driving on age groups, by age group, shows that 15 to 19, 271. This is for year 2017. For 20 to 29, 816, and then 30 to 39, it tapers off until you get to the age 70, which then it bumps up, which I found interesting. Distracted drivers were involved in deaths of 599 non-occupants during 2017. This distracted driving has to do with changing the radio, but mostly cell phones. Fatal crashes by cell phone use was 401, by drivers 404, and by other people in that accident were 434. Drivers and fatal crashes by age and by distinction and cell phone use, the number 15 through 29 was over 15,000. And then there were almost 400 fatalities using a cell phone. So although vaping is very important, I'm looking at stats from several years ago that are not current. I'm sure they will update them soon, but there are other things that we have to be concerned about. Distracted driving is one of the biggest concerns. More fatalities from distracted driving. And in one article I read, they did mention the fatalities we had on Foothill in Pleasanton at Christmas. They had said, and I haven't confirmed that was a distracted driving or speed. So just a thought thing. I don't have any answers, but stopping vaping is important, but there are also things that are killing more students, more kids than vaping, and I think we should remember that and try to get that word out too. Thank you.
And I appreciate all of that, the data, and actually if you could share some of the stats, if you've written them down, that'd be helpful. All of those things we do take seriously. I just want to make sure that to note there's one distinction is we don't have driving on our campus, and we don't have distracted driving on the campus, and we don't have drunk driving on our campus. We have very few instances of alcohol on campus. What we do have on our campus is vaping. So that's the difference, is that all those other things are horrible, and we have education and awareness about them, and we will continue to do that for vaping. The biggest difference that we've seen is that the vaping is on the campus, and so it's disruptive of what's happening on campus, possibly leading to death in many, many years from now. It's a slower way. It's not an instantaneous thing. And so I just want to make sure that people know when we focus on the anti-vaping piece, it's because it has disrupted school in a way that we've never faced. And the other things we are not diminishing our education on those by any means. The distracted driving, we have students who are doing that. So I just want to make sure, and we can do more in that area as well. And I think there is a group in Pleasanton that Mrs. Rambo and I've met with a few times that are parents who are working on some of the issues about the opioids and the prescription drug abuse. And so they've come into our parent club. So again, once almost similar to what our principal said earlier, Dana Taylor, is focusing on one thing doesn't diminish the others. It's just an increase heightened. So, but any more that we can do, we're always open. We do all get together. We do the every 15 minutes, which is a huge community issue. And yet my sense is that sometimes in the holidays, there seems as there's always a tragedy around some driving situation, whether it's here or in our neighbors in the Tri-Valley. And it is, it shouldn't happen. And anything we can do, we are eager and willing to do. So thank you for reminding. It's kind of a sober reminder, but thank you.
You brought up the every 15 minutes. I would like us to see it instead of a drunk driving, a distracted driving, because that is becoming more prevalent. CDC's that's starting to approach more deaths from distracted driving than alcohol-related driving. So.
Well, if I can touch on it, this has been going on for many, many years. And what is coming now is the problems with dealing with it. I mean, it used to be the 3 E's: education, enforcement, and engineering, to deal with these type of issues. The problem is enforcement isn't there because the laws aren't really designed yet how to deal with it and what do you do with it. But I'll add one more. It's going to have to be the energy, like the school district is doing, trying to be more vocal about this, getting the people to get more involved, because that's the only way that this is really, really going to be addressed. CDC came out with those stats. I don't know if you're reading it. Is it 2017?
That's 2017.
2017, yeah, and they came out with these statistics. And a lot of what you're talking about, vaping, is the black market vaping. And it's out there, and law enforcement doesn't know what to do with it and how to approach it, because the laws really aren't described well enough for them to go out in the district attorney's office how to deal with it. So, but they're getting there, and the state's getting better in what they're doing. So it is sad. And then this whole issue with this distracted driving with the cell phones, I don't know if there's some type of engineering that'll shut that off so the kid can't use it, but maybe we'll see that later in life.
One minor statistic that's come up, and it's starting to build, is distracted walking and being hit by a car. Kids looking down at their cell phone, or anybody looking down at their cell phone, crossing the street, expecting a car to stop and not being aware of their surroundings. And they're starting to see a little bit more of that happening. So, get rid of cell phone.
Thank you, Mr. Rogie. I won't go into any of we went to some meetings, and it was real nice to be invited to some of the holiday functions. I did want to mention and thank some groups here in the community. Last year, Supervisor Haggerty had a bicycle, and he challenged us, and we talked with the firefighters and the Police Officers Association here, and it turned into 20. And Supervisor Haggerty this year reached out to some community partners, as we did, and I'd like to thank Livermore Pleasanton Firefighters, Local 1974, and Livermore Police Officers Association, the Alameda County Deputy Sheriff's Association, the Laborers Local 304, Jeff over at TopCon, Ender at Dublin GMC, Target, and especially Paul, who runs, Grishesky, who runs the Del Val Bike Shop, and those kids over there, students, diligently assembling bikes, learning life skills. And of course, Supervisor Haggerty's staff. But we were able to donate, I think, 53 bicycles, brand new bikes, to the kids over at Jackson Elementary. And Ms. Johnson did a great job of organizing it and having the media there, and all the partners here within the district that did it. So there was a lot of happy kids. And just a very quick, short story, not to throw any numbers off, but a lot of times, I was involved in Toys for Tots for a lot of years, and it's real easy for anyone in the public that has, or is one of the haves, to sometimes get a little jaded, or sometimes, think twice before you become philanthropic, or you donate, or to get judgmental. So we're giving the bikes out to the kids, and it's a great thing, and everyone's smiling. And I'm about 2 miles from the school on the way home. All the trucks are unloaded. Everyone's gone. And I'm about 2 miles away, and I see a little girl who's about 9 years old, went to Jackson, because I remember, saw her there, and her 2 little brothers following her about 2 miles away, had their new little bike helmets on, their little locks wrapped around their seat, and they're riding home, just the 3 of them. And you got to think, those kids were walking the day before, because these bikes went to kids that didn't have bikes, that are primarily using their bicycles to get home. And I mean, to me, that's meaningful intervention. And, you know, you get places like Target and all these different partners that came together just on an ask and provided for a lot of our kids. And I thank them all. That's it.
So I think our board members did a great job of recapping all the tremendous things that happened prior to the break. So I'm just going to talk about some of the new things. So, and actually Math Counts was great. We all have our T-shirts. I hope you have your T-shirts to represent our mathematical focus. And we want to thank Dr. Kevin Greer for his emceeing that day. It was very nice. So the upcoming events, we have Thursday night, Arroyo Seco Math Festival Family Night in the multipurpose room from 6 to 7:30 p.m. We also have our TK and Kinder Parent Information Nights held at Mitchell, K8, Croce, Junction K, and Jackson Avenue, respectively, in January. And Mr. Scott Vernoy will be leading that. Also, we have the annual Race to the Flagpole at Independence Park on Saturday, January 25th to support Livermore High and Livermore Granada Boosters, And that's our a wonderful parent group and partner group and volunteer group. And Boomer will be there to get his medal, Boomer Bowers, as well as Rob and I will accompany him. And then also we wanted to welcome Sergeant Paul Meyer. He's the newest sergeant who's been added to fill out our student resource officer support group from the city. That's through a co-grant that we helped write with the Livermore Police Department. And this came from, we talked earlier about student voice and contributing through surveys and all of that, but our very first safety forum, it was shortly after the tragic shooting in another state. We held that forum and we asked our students, and one of the things they said that they would make them feel safer would be to have continual presence of student resources officers instead of having some days where they're off. And so now we have that. So it took us a few years to get it in place, but we do have a sergeant now as well as our 2 assigned student resource officers, and they will be able to help throughout all of our schools. And they will be helping with the anti-vaping efforts and education as well. And so I'll end with my Happy New Year quote. It's my favorite one by Edith Lovejoy Pierce. As we start the new year, we open the book, its pages are blank. We're going to put words on them ourselves. That book is called Opportunity, and the first chapter is New Year's Day. So we're looking forward to many educational opportunities awaiting our students in 2020. The year is full of promise, and I want to thank everyone here, those who work here, those who volunteer, those who otherwise contribute on behalf of our students, because this year and beyond is full of boundless opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With no further business, we'll adjourn at 21:47.